This video is brought to you by the Roll for Combat Actual Play podcast and their 3-ring adventure series, and by the Deck of Mini and their Big Bad Booklet series, and by Steamforged Games and their Epic Encounters Lair of the Red Dragon. Hello and welcome back to the Gallant Goblin. I'm really excited to share this one with you today. We have the next Icons of the Realm set of pre-painted minis for Dungeons & Dragons. This is Boneyard. Many thanks to WizKids for sending it to us to review. This set also has 2 premium figures that released alongside it, the green and blue Dracoliches. You can get a sneak peek at them by watching our unboxing at the eye in the corner of your screen, and we'll have a full review of them coming soon, which you can see now in the eye if we've already released the video. If not, hold tight and we'll have it out really soon. The Boneyard set here has 45 figures and is expected to hit the market in March 2021. It's not tied to any one particular adventure, but instead focuses on expanding our options for undead-related minis. Plus, I'm sure there's going to be several surprises in it too. If you're not familiar with the WizKids booster box system, I recommend checking out our FAQ at gallantgoblin.com to learn all about it. We're also doing another giveaway with this video to win your own booster box of Boneyard minis here when the set releases. All you have to do is be a subscriber to the channel here and leave me a comment down below with your thoughts on this set. We also have another giveaway ongoing for the Pathfinder Battles Darklands Rising set. And by the way, if you're not watching our Pathfinder content, what are you even doing? The minis in that set were incredible. You should really check it out. I'll throw that video up in the eye in the corner of the screen so you can check it out too. Go ahead and watch that after you watch this video, of course. If you're a longtime viewer, you know that one of the things that I find toughest about D&D is remembering the differences between all the different undead creatures. So this is our opportunity to get it all straight in our heads. There will be a quiz at the end. So let's start with the zombie. We get 2 zombie minis in this set. The common variant appears to me to be a Goliath, as he is fairly large compared to your standard medium-sized PC mini. The uncommon variant is a bit closer to the original art and appears to be an elf zombie based on the Spock ears. Zombies are CR 1/4 creatures who behave mostly as you would expect them to from popular culture, though they are raised by necromancers and obey their commands rather than being utterly mindless cannibals. Though without orders, they do revert to that mindless walking dead nature. Their stat block is in the basic rules. Skeletons and zombies are pretty similar, both raised by necromancers or stray necromantic energy. They're usually employed as grunts. Skeletons are marginally more intelligent and able to follow fairly complex orders, though they do so very literally and don't really improvise or think for themselves. But they can fight with weapons and wear a bit of armor, which is more than your standard zombie can do. We actually get 3 standard skeletons in this set. 2 are common and 1 uncommon. One awesome thing about this set is that we're getting undead versions of races other than just humans. Our common skeletons are humanoid and either halfling or gnome, and our uncommon is a dwarf. You'll have to adjust their CR 1/4 stat block to accommodate the little hand axes though. You can find these stat blocks in the basic rules. Sometimes dark wizards or warlocks need a helping hand around their creepy laboratories, and so they animate the severed hands of living or dead murderers, as one does. The undead hands can't be turned, and while they can't really discern between different people, they can be sent into a room to just murder anyone they find. They're also good at fetching you a beer from the fridge. They have a CR 0 stat block in the monster manual. They appear in Out of the Abyss and Curse of Strahd, and you can find their lesser known and smellier cousin, the Stomping Foot, in Acquisitions Incorporated. You can also have some fun using this as a severed troll hand that maybe regrows as a new troll. Will-o-wisps, or is it Wills-o-wisp? Anyway, they're one of those creatures that seem like they would be benevolent. You're wandering in a wood and come across a peaceful glade with little specks of light dancing over it. But in truth, those playful-looking lights are really chaotic, evil bits of dark magic that feed on fear and despair, shocking unsuspecting adventurers and consuming their life force. They are the souls of evil people who perished in misery while wandering in lands permeated with magic, particularly dark bogs and battlefields. They have a CR2 stat block in the basic rules, and this mini could double as a Dancing Lights spell effect. Okay, the next two undead creatures are the toughest to differentiate, so let's talk about them together. On the left, we have a Ghast, and on the right, a Ghoul. They do look very similar and have a lot of traits in common. They're both immune to poison, have dark vision, and attack by biting and clawing at flesh, which they need to eat. And they're both able to paralyze with their claw attacks. Ghasts are more powerful than their Ghoul cousins, and can usually be identified by their overlarge claws and tongue. Ghasts and Ghouls are unique in tracing their undead origin to the Abyss, where Dorsane, the first ghoul, was a worshipper of Orcus, who has a new mini that you can see our review of in the eye in the corner of your screen. So Dorsane became a cannibal to show his devotion to Orcus, and since then, ghouls and ghasts have been driven by their need to consume more and more flesh, which sets them apart from most undead who merely follow the orders of their maker. Ghouls are mostly mindless eating machines, like me around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but ghasts are more cunning and can actually rally a herd of ghouls into following its commands. Both have stat blocks in the basic rules. Ghouls are CR1 creatures, and ghasts have a CR of 2. They appear in many adventures. Dread Warriors are created by the Red Wizards of Thay as a sort of undead spellcaster familiar. They share a psychic link with the Red Wizard, allowing the wizard to see through the Dread Warrior's eyes, and the wizard can direct them like an automaton. They're created from the corpses of skilled warriors and retain the fighting skill they had in life, making them formidable foes. Now, the mini here doesn't really match the concept art for Dread Warriors found in Rise of Tiamat. This looks much more like a Deathlock White, which is detailed in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. A Deathlock White is an intelligent, undead version of a warlock who was also created by the Red Wizards of Thay. They have a CR of 3 and appear in Tales from the Yawning Portal. A poltergeist is a variant of the specter. Very briefly, a specter is the angry spirit of a humanoid that's unable to pass through to the afterlife. A poltergeist, in particular, doesn't understand how it died and expresses its anger by hurling things around the room like an angry kindergartner. It's an invisible creature, here represented by a table being lifted off the ground, along with a candle and a pitcher of water and a goblet of wine. Also note that this mini isn't bent. The table is designed to look a little bit off-kilter there. A poltergeist has a CR of 2 and can be found in the Monster Manual. One appears in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Curse of Strahd, Out of the Abyss, and Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. This just awful looking thing is a spawn of Caius. Caius was a high priest of Orcus who enjoyed creating these wormy undead creatures, and his disciples are keeping that tradition alive, so to speak. It looks like a zombie with a bunch of green worms crawling in and out of it, and that's exactly what it is. While the worms kill the brain and take control of the body, they also trap the soul of the creature within, preventing resurrection until the creature is destroyed. They are CR5 creatures found in Volo's Guide. There's an adventure in Ghosts of Saltmarsh called Tamarat's Fate, in which a horde of drowned undead invade an island. One type of creature in that horde is a drowned assassin. In Undeath, these assassins continue to skulk in the shadows, looking for opportunities to land a blow with its poison dagger or crossbow. If it successfully poisons a foe, it gives them blue rot, which causes large blue boils to grow on their face and back, as you can see in our mini here. It's a particularly nasty disease that's handled rather differently than most diseases in 5th edition. Check it and this creature out in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. It has a CR of 4. The drowned assassin also appears in Lokatha Rising. Most of a vampire's humanoid victims become what's known as vampire spawn. Undead creatures with a hunger for blood but under the control of their sire. They only become a true independent vampire if they're allowed to drink their creator's blood. They do gain independence if their sire ever dies as well. While they're not as strong as a true vampire, vampire spawn are pretty powerful. They're CR5 creatures with many of the same characteristics of a true vampire, including regeneration, certain vampire weaknesses, and spider climb. We've had a few vampire spawn minis in the past, but since they usually appear in packs, it's certainly good to have a nice variety of them to choose from. The Phantom Warrior is a creature specifically from Curse of Strahd. It's the spectral remnant of a soldier or knight who died in battle or performing its duty. It isn't trapped like a ghost, though. It can end its own existence anytime it wants, but it remains out of a sense of loyalty or duty. If it's set to defend an important bridge, perhaps, it may remain until a replacement is in place or until defending the bridge is no longer viable or important. They can be of any alignment and retain their memories of the last couple of days of their life, but everything before that fades away. The little plumes coming off the mini, I believe, just represent its ethereal nature. They have a CR of 3. Moving on now to our uncommon minis, we're starting things off with a proper Spectre. Unlike the Phantom Warrior, the Spectre is an angry spirit that is trapped in the material world, and it retains no connection to its previous existence. We'll talk about ghosts in a moment. They're able to proceed to the afterlife after their unfinished business is completed. Not so for the Spectre. It can only be dispersed through the destruction of its soul. Spectres just hate the living, as killing is the only thing that really brings them a little bit of joy. Well, killing and ice cream. They can drain the life out of a creature, reducing their hit point maximum. They're not tremendously difficult creatures with a CR of 1, but they do have a number of damage resistances and immunities. Their stat block is in the basic rules, and they appear in Storm King's Thunder, Curse of Strahd, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, The Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, and The Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. The Vampire Spellcaster is a vampire variant introduced in the Monster Manual alongside the Vampire Warrior. The Vampire Spellcaster has its CR rating boosted from 13 to 15 and is considered a 9th level caster with wizard spells like Dominate Person, Blight, Greater Invisibility, Animate Dead, and Bestow Curse. Here, interestingly, we get a Tiefling Vampire, though you could easily use this figure for a Tiefling caster player character. There's not much indicating that it's a vampire, except for perhaps the slightest hint of fangs in its mouth. Vampire spellcasters appear in random urban encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I really like this Ghost Mini. The design they chose and the color just seems really spot on to me. Now, you've probably sussed out by now what a ghost in D&D is. They're undead spirits tied to particular locations or objects or people, and they're unable to move on to the afterlife until their unfinished business is completed. They behave rather like haunts in Pathfinder. The only way to get rid of a ghost really is to help it with its mission, making ghost encounters kind of more interesting and puzzle-like than most other monster encounters in D&D. They're also able to possess PCs, which can add an interesting little twist. They are CR4 creatures. So wraiths are the spirits of really vile people who may just have lived a truly awful life or who even entered into a devilish pact with a fiend, but they were just so evil and so suffused with negative energy that their soul just implodes at death and the spirit becomes a soulless wraith. It loses its connection to its past life and just exists to destroy other life. It's able to create and control specters, so sometimes you'll find one leading a little gang of specters around. The negative energy of a wraith just oozes off its form, causing plants to wither and die as it glides past. It'll even snuff out candles as it closes in. They are CR5 creatures found in the basic rules. Mummies are, of course, generally found in ancient tombs. They are created when priests of a death god imbue a mummified corpse with necromantic magic, marking its linen wrappings with special symbols. They're basically undead traps, set to animate in response to some condition set forth by their creator, usually crossing a certain threshold or touching a certain treasure. When triggered, they rise and attack. One other interesting thing about the mummy is that it can curse you with mummy rot, which will slowly kill you. You can usually send the mummy back and cure the mummy rot by undoing the transgression, such as by putting that golden goblet back on its pedestal. Taking a bit of a left turn with this one. Long story short, the Slotty were unintentionally created by Primus. overlord of the lawful neutral machine-like Modron, when he sent a stone suffused with lawful energy off into the realm of Limbo. He thought it would basically bring order to chaos, but the chaotic energy that it absorbed spawned these chaotic horrors known as Slotty. There are many varieties, and we've touched on many of them in our videos here. The Death Slotty are suffused with negative energy like the Wraiths from earlier, and lead legions of red and blue Slotty in invasions of other planes with the goal of basically causing pain. They are shapeshifters, have destructive spellcasting abilities, regeneration, and magic resistance, all adding up to a CR10 stat block, which you can find in the monster manual. They are the most powerful Slod in 5e so far. They are considered aberrations and not undead. If you're a GM and you have a Warlock in your party, it's important to know about the Deathlock. Warlocks are created when a person forges a pact with a great power, known as a patron. Sometimes these patrons are heavenly good creatures, but more often they're archdevils or other evil creatures. The patron wants something from the person and gives them power in return. If the Warlock goes back on its deal, the consequences can be lethal. The patron may have the Warlock struck down and may raise it from the dead as a Deathlock, an undead creature truly bound to the will of its patron. They have a CR4 stat block in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. They have a certain selection of spells, but the book gives you options based on the patron, either Archfey, Fiend, or Great Old One. Our mini here appears to be casting Mage Hand, though it could also be something like Arms of Hadar. A Deathlock appears in Sleeping Dragon's Wake and Tales from the Yawning Portal. The Avatar of Death is an interesting inclusion in this set. It's specifically tied to the Deck of Many Things and the Deck of Several Things, magical items that can introduce a lot of OP chaos into your game. If one of your players draws the Skull card from the deck, they summon the Avatar of Death here, which challenges the PC to one-on-one combat to the death. If another person does try to help, another Avatar is summoned for that person. If you are interested in adding the Deck of Many Things to your game, you really should check out the gorgeous animated Deck of Many Things from our sponsor, Hitpoint Press. You can see our review of it by clicking the eye in the corner of your screen. You could also use this mini if you ever want to put your PCs in a swimming pool and delete the ladder. The Sword Wraith was introduced in Mordenkainen's Tome. These undead creatures arise from glory-hunting fallen warriors who died before getting the level of fame or honor that they really desired. They may have been great soldiers, caught by surprise and killed before even knowing what was going on. In death, they can be appeased by praise. In fact, towns that are located near great battlefields may be infested with Sword Wraiths, and they may, in response to that, have annual festivals celebrating them to kind of keep them placated. There are two types, the Warrior and the Commander. The Warrior here has a CR of 3 and attacks with a longsword or longbow. They appear in Sleeping Dragon's Wake and Divine Contention. Here we move on to our large creatures, and honestly, we move away from the undead theme for a lot of these. A few of these slots are filled with creatures that do appear often in D&D adventures, but for which we don't have a lot of great minis. First, the Odiug, a large aberration with 3 legs that lives in piles of offal and carrion, waiting for someone edible to walk by. Much like me, their primary motivation in life is food. Sometimes they're kept by subterranean cultures as guard dogs. As long as they're well fed, they'll stay in their little nests and only feast upon what's given to them, or any wandering adventurers that may get a little bit too close. They have a CR of 5. They appear in Infernal Machine Rebuild, Tomb of Annihilation, Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Storm King's Thunder, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Rise of Tiamat. For such a classic creature as a carrion crawler, which dates back to 1st edition, we don't have a lot of modern minis for it. There was one in the Rage of Demons set back in 2015, and then an unpainted Nolzur's mini, so it's time for a new one. These large monstrosities are found in the Underdark, where they eat the flesh and bones of the fallen and attack anyone who trespasses into their territory. They immediately latch onto light sources and follow them, waiting for a good chance for an ambush. They have the ability to climb walls and ceilings and can paralyze foes with their tentacles, making these CR2 creatures with a stat block in the monster manual. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Out of the Abyss. This is such a great looking mini, one of my favorites in the set. Ochre jellies are large basic oozes that can slip through the small cracks and climb the walls, attacking with their pseudopods. They split when dealt lightning or slashing damage. They don't engulf creatures the way that some other oozes do, and since ooze acid generally only dissolves soft tissue, you can usually find some great treasure inside them, along with the bones of their previous victims, though ochre jellies don't harm the weapons and armor of their opponents the way that black puddings do. The Ochre Jelly has a CR of 2. They appear in Lost Mine of Phandelver, Rick and Morty, Princes of the Apocalypse, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Dragon of Icespire Peak, Out of the Abyss, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Ah, the Ogre Zombie. I feel a special attachment to this fella because I recently painted one as part of the WizKids Paint Night Kit event with VMuse. You can check out that video at the eye in the corner of your screen. If you aren't up to painting your own, though you certainly could if you wanted to, this pre-painted fella is for you. The Ogre Zombie stat block can be found in the basic rules. They generally attack with a Morning Star, but since this fella is unarmed, you may want to replace that attack with a Slam attack. But if you ever wanted to see a comparison between a pre-painted mini and what an amateur like me can do with instructions, here you go. The Ogre Zombie has a CR of 2. We talked about the general rules and lore behind skeletons a little bit earlier. Comparing the stat blocks of a warhorse with a warhorse skeleton does give you a good template for making skeletons of other creatures, though. The skeleton form of the warhorse has a higher constitution, but lower wisdom and charisma, giving it more hit points. It becomes vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, but immune to poison and exhaustion, and it gains dark vision. Its attacks and challenge rating of 1/2 remain the same, though. You can find the stat blocks for both of them in the basic rules. Warhorse skeletons appear in Storm King's Thunder and Curse of Strahd. Well, now this one's interesting. The Skittering Horror is a creature from the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, which is the Magic the Gathering campaign setting book. The Skittering Horror is one of several types of horrors, which are aberrations who live in the dark and embody the fears of Ravnica's people. 3 guilds have compelled them into service, but it's the Golgari Swarm who are known to prefer the Skittering Horror, which can paralyze creatures who see it. It can also climb walls and attack with its claws. The Ravnica book details how to customize horrors of your own from various components. The Skittering Horror has a CR of 15. Note that this and the next 3 minis are all huge uncommons. The second ooze in this set is the Elder Black Pudding, a creature that appears in the Dead and Thay adventure in Tales from the Yawning Portal. The Black Pudding's acid can damage and destroy flesh, wood, metal, and bone. It's a rude awakening for a low-level party when they find their new weapons and armor dissolving in the midst of battle. There are only 2 differences between a Black Pudding and an Elder Black Pudding. The Elder is a huge creature instead of a large, and the Elder has roughly twice as many hit points, which gives it more opportunities to split. We're slowly getting skeleton versions of all the types of giants. We already have fire and frost giant skeletons, and here we have our hill giant skeleton. What's interesting about these is that WizKids doesn't generally make minis for creatures that don't have stat blocks in 5e, but the giant skeletons seem to be the exception to that rule. We did get a frost giant skeleton stat block in Rime of the Frost Maiden, but that's it. There is a generic giant skeleton stat block in Tales from the Yawning Portal, though. But as we demonstrated with the Warhorse a little bit earlier, it isn't really hard to alter an existing stat block to create a skeleton version of an existing creature. Everyone loves a good Kraken battle, but not many parties get to a high enough level where one is feasible. Luckily, Ghosts of Saltmarsh introduced us to the Juvenile Kraken, which has a CR of 14 as opposed to 23, while retaining much of the flavor and abilities that make Krakens fun. They have freedom of movement, true sight, damage immunities, the ability to swallow and fling creatures, and they can hurl lightning. They're also considered legendary creatures with legendary actions. You can also give them Kraken layer actions if you want to as well. If you want some interesting battles, the Juvenile Kraken is your guy. Now we're moving on to our rarer creatures. Let's tackle the next 2 out of order, starting with number 35, the Lich. A Lich is a wizard who managed to embrace undeath as a way of achieving immortality. It does this by trapping its soul in an object known as a phylactery, to which it must continually feed other souls to sustain the necromantic magic, preserving the Lich's form. A Lich is an extremely powerful 18th level spellcaster with wizard spells, including Power Word Kill. Manual. It has a CR 21 stat block in the basic rules. A Lich appears in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, Curse of Strahd, and Princess of the Apocalypse. If, for whatever reason, the Lich doesn't keep up its feeding schedule to its phylactery, the Lich's body starts to decompose and turn to dust until only a floating skull remains, becoming a Demi-Lich. It can retain its Lich status by feeding its phylactery one more soul, but until then, it remains in this reduced state. A Lich, as I said, has a CR of 21, and a Demi-Lich has a CR of 18, which is still nothing to shake a stick at. It's still a legendary creature and can reduce a creature to 0 hit points from full with a simple blood-curdling howl, and can siphon the life out of 3 foes at once. The stat block can be found in the Monster Manual. Its size is technically tiny, but here it's on a small-sized base. A Demi-Lich appears in Rime of the Frost Maiden, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. The same dark magics that are used to create your run-of-the-mill mummy can also be used to give undeath to powerful ancient rulers or high priests of dark gods. These so-called mummy lords retain their personality and power and are considered CR 15 legendary creatures and 10th level casters with cleric spells. They can also bestow mummy rot and paralyze foes with a glance. The only way to truly destroy one is to find its preserved heart, which is usually stored in some sort of jar or Tupperware somewhere hidden nearby. One appears in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and its stat block is in the basic rules. This is actually our 4th Death Knight mini in the Icons of the Realms line to my count, but it's probably the best one. We had an old one in Monster Menagerie 1, and 2 named Death Knights in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, but this one takes the evil cake. A Death Knight is created from a paladin who dies after they have fallen from grace, but before they've been able to atone, if they even wanted to. Dark powers can turn such a being into a hate-filled, undead knight with burning red eyes. They have a CR 17 stat block in the Monster Manual and are 19th level casters with paladin spells. They appear in Sleeping Dragon's Wake and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Next, we have our 4 rare large minis, starting with the Mind Witness. There are a lot of variations on the Beholder, and this one was introduced in 5e and Volo's Guide. When a Beholder is stunned and brought to a Mind Flayer's Elder Brain brine pool, it can be transformed into a sort of half Beholder, half Mind Flayer, though it's not really terribly powerful, and it's mostly used as like a Wi-Fi booster for the Mind Flayer colony, improving their ability to communicate telepathically. But it does have 6 eye ray attacks, adding up to a CR of 5. So I have a love-hate relationship with trolls. On the one hand, their nearly indestructible nature gives them just a huge variety of types and abilities, making them an endless source of creativity and fun in gameplay. On the other hand, their usually spindly legs means that their minis are just always prone to bending. The rot troll here fits our undead theme nicely. If you take a troll and expose it to a lot of necrotic energy, its body will wither and its skin will peel off to the point where it's just no longer able to regenerate. But its body radiates that necromantic energy, so instead of healing every turn, it causes anyone nearby to lose health unless the rot troll takes acid or fire damage. Its CR 9 stat block is in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. There are 2 types of snake people in D&D lore, the Yuan-Ti and the Nagas, and they don't really like each other very much. The Nagas have an ability to resurrect themselves, so the Yuan-Ti developed a necromantic ritual to stop that by transforming the Naga into these undead slaves under their control. A Bone Naga has a CR 4 stat block in the Monster Manual and is a 5th level caster. If it was a good Guardian Naga in life, it has certain cleric spells, but if it was a less good Spirit Naga, it has wizard spells instead. WizKids has been pretty snail-happy lately, and I'm here for it. Bone whelks are large mollusks that have adhesive shells that collect bones and trash and pesky adventurers for protection. And when a bone whelk dies, it emits a terrible shriek that causes nearby creatures to take necrotic damage. The bone whelk appears in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, where you can find its CR 1/4 stat block. Now we're at our 4 huge rare minis, all of which are pretty horrific in this set, starting with the Sibriex, which was introduced in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and which appears in Descent into Avernus. Sibriexes are ancient demons that haunt the remote parts of the Abyss, amassing information from across the multiverse with their 25 intelligence. They're also able to create new demons and warp the flesh of those they can see. It even comes with a D100 rolling table to see what happens to people who succumb to that ability. It can be anything from turning the creature's hair blue to causing it to grow another head. They are CR18 creatures. Okay, back to the Mind Flayers and their experiments. We saw what they could do with a beholder, and now let's see what they can do with oozes and jellies. They've been able to concoct this creature, an Oblex, which is a slime able to eat memories, gaining languages and proficiencies from its victims, and gaining the ability to transform parts of its body to impersonate their victim, likely luring others into a trap. They tend to target very intelligent creatures like wizards, though the Oblex has innate spellcasting abilities of its own, too. An Elder Oblex, as seen here, has a CR of 10 and appears in Infernal Machine Rebuild, Rakma, and in my own adventure, I Am Your World, available over on dmsguild.com. The Tomb of Annihilation adventure introduced a number of new zombie variants, including an Ankylosaurus zombie, a Gorillon zombie, and yes, a Tyrannosaurus zombie. Not only does he have all the usual T-Rex abilities and the usual zombie traits like undead fortitude and poison immunities, but he's also eaten a lot of other zombies, which he can vomit up as a bonus action. The mini here comes with a detachable horde of zombies that you can place in his mouth. At some point, he'll have vomited up all the zombies he has, and you can remove the little mask from his throat to indicate that to the players. It's a gross little attention to detail that I think is fantastic. The T-Rex zombie has a CR 8 stat block in Tomb of Annihilation. Another creature introduced in Tomb of Annihilation, and pretty important to its plot, is the Atropol, which is described as an abandoned, unfinished, undead creation of an evil god, with an umbilical cord that connects directly to the negative plane, from where it's able to summon wraiths to do its bidding. It has turn resistance and can give it to others, a ray of cold, a life drain effect, and legendary actions, including a scream that causes exhaustion. The Atropol has a CR 13 stat block in Tomb of Annihilation. There are also 2 promo sets releasing alongside Boneyard. We have a set of Orc skeletons and Kobold skeletons. The Orc skeleton promo box comes with 3 unique minis. This set will be available exclusively in brick and mortar and some online game stores, and it's up to them to decide how they want to distribute them, so be sure to get in touch with your local game store ASAP if you're interested in picking up a box, because of course supplies are limited. The Kobold Skeleton box, which has 4 minis, is available exclusively at dndmini.com as a promotional item when you pre-order any Boneyard set, including a single booster box. The threshold for free domestic shipping is $50. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how these promo sets will be attainable for our international viewers. I do know that WizKids has been trying to increase their international reach, so hopefully you'll have a way of getting these promos. So, back to our full set here. There are a lot of undead creatures in D&D, and while they all have their own motivations, creation stories, and abilities, many of them really do look similar. For example, the Ghost, the Poltergeist, the Phantom Warrior, the Sword Wraith Warrior, and the regular Wraith are all variations on the incorporeal, ghostly humanoid. So don't feel constrained on using the minis for just the creature that's printed on the base. Plus, it's good to mix things up a little bit to keep your players on their toes. If you throw a Wraith mini down there and the player recognizes it from the art in the monster manual, it can lead to some metagaming, so have fun with it. I do hope this video helped you wrap your head around the various types of undead creatures in D&D lore. If you've seen our channel before, you know that we like to show the distribution of the minis in a set. It's usually pretty standardized, at least lately, but there was one oddity in this set. While we did get one of every mini, which is the most important thing, we happened to get 2 of one of the rares. We got 2 Oblexes, which I'm not complaining about because that's one of my favorites. However, to balance the tables, we only got 1 of an uncommon, the Ochre Jelly. I don't have any theories about why this occurred, but I'll be looking for other case reports to see if it was just me or some sort of systematic change. Stay tuned to the end of this video if you do want to see what we got in every individual box. If you watched our last video for Darklands Rising for Pathfinder Battles, you know that we received a higher than average number of broken minis in that set. I'm happy to say that this set didn't really have too many issues. One hill giant skeleton had a lopped off head that was easy enough to reattach. The Atropol had one broken off tentacle that was also easy to reattach, and one vampire spellcaster had broken off her flight base. Not too hard to fix. So out of 128 minis, there were 3 that were broken but fixable. We did have a number of them that just came detached from their bases. Not broken at all, but the glue didn't hold for whatever reason. The main culprit there was the Skittering Horror. And the only mini that was bent enough to need a little resetting was, of course, the Rot Troll. If you keep a little super glue handy, you should be fine. This set has the usual size distribution, with each box having 1 large or huge mini and 3 medium or small ones. I'm curious to hear what you think about this set. How do you like having a set that's designed around a particular theme rather than a particular adventure? Are there some other themes that you'd like to see them tackle? We've got a lot of demons and devils in the Avernus set, and there's giants in Storm King's Thunder. I could imagine maybe a nature or a phase set. I don't know. What do you think? What would you like to see? And it's time to announce the winner of our Pathfinder Battles Darklands Rising giveaway. The winner gets a booster box of Darklands Rising, which was a really awesome set. If you haven't seen our review of it, be sure to check it out by clicking that eye in the corner of your screen. So without further ado, our giveaway winner is Tromboner98, congratulations. I know that we've had a lot of conversations in the comment section down there over the years, so I was really happy when I saw your name pop up. Just drop me an email at thegallantgoblin@gmail.com to claim your prize and try to overlook those clear bases. I wanted to take this moment to let you know that we finally launched our Discord channel. If you want to have another place to discuss minis, D&D, Pathfinder, Starfinder, organize groups to play, or just hang out and chat, you can find it down in the comment section down below. There's a little link down there. Now, this is going to be one of those things that we're going to get off the ground, and I'm sure is going to grow and evolve over time. So I'm open to all your suggestions and recommendations, so please just leave them down there below or in the Discord channel itself. And don't forget to enter our ongoing giveaway for this set by being a subscriber to the channel and leaving me a comment down below with your thoughts on the case. Maybe let me know what your favorite mini in the set is. Very soon we'll have our review of the premium figures coming with this set, the green and blue Dracoliches, and we'll have a review of the new supersized adult blue dragon mini. So be sure you're subscribed so you can be one of the first ones to get a good look at those. The Boneyard set is scheduled for release in March 2021. The MSRP increase that we saw with Darklands Rising remains in effect. The MSRP for a booster box of 4 minis here is $19.99, though if you check some of the online retailers, they've priced them in line with previous sets like Fangs and Talons and Icewind Dale. Your mileage may vary at your local retailer, so feel free to consider your options and ask your local game stores if they have any incentives like those promo figures maybe. Again, we want to thank WizKids for sending us this case to review with you. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comment section down below. We also want to thank our sponsors for this video. First, we have Hit Point Press. Their Big Bad Booklet series is a fantastic resource for new, fun, and creative adventures each month. You'll get a booklet along with a full adventure inside that includes the story, adventure hooks to get you started, brand new art and stat blocks and layer information, and more, so you can be ready to hit the table and ready to play using the D&D 5e rules that you already know. And you can get a pack of 10 new reference cards alongside it. This month, come meet Valai Axel, an ancient writhing sea monster devoted to the thrill of the hunt. Will you stop this eldritch being, or be lured by its song into the depths? Learn more and subscribe today at bigbadbooklet.com. Next, we have Steamforged Games and their Epic Encounter series. These boxes are just incredible. Each set comes with everything you need to run a mini-based adventure with your friends and family. You get minis and maps and tokens and an adventure book. And most of the things you can get are completely reusable in other stories and adventures, so it's a great way to get some highly detailed minis and maps that you can use forever. And the adventure books are written to not only give you a story to tell, but to help improve your own storytelling abilities. You can lift ideas from these books for encounters and how to use the terrain and how to play boss characters like dragons and giants. I'm just about to open 2 boxes and start filming our review of them, Village of the Goblin Chief and Swamp of the Hydra. These are releasing soon, but you can also pick up Shrine of the Cobalt Queen, Lair of the Red Dragon, Hall of the Orc King, and Caverns of the Frost Giant. They're all amazing and some of my favorite RPG products out there. Learn more and get a set for yourself or as a gift today at steamforged.com. We also want to thank our friends at the Roll for Combat Actual Play podcast and their 3 Ring Adventure series. If you haven't checked them out already, which you really should, their GM is Mr. Stephen Glicker, who is a longtime game master and podcaster, combining that expertise with Roll for Combat. I'll actually be interviewing him really soon for a review of the full Agents of Edgewatch adventure path for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so be sure to check that out. But if you're looking for fun, informative, and enlightening adventures to listen to while you're toiling around the house or commuting, be sure to check out their various Pathfinder and Starfinder playthroughs. The 3 Ring Adventure is a playthrough of the Extinction Curse adventure path with lots of interesting characters with a focus on roleplay and character development. Agents of Edgewatch really focuses on the overarching plot and mystery, not to mention combat and tactics. And if you want to hear a Starfinder adventure to get a sense of what that system is like, check out their Dead Sons adventure. Each show is fun, and Stephen always shares tips and insights to make your games at home even better. Learn more and listen today at rollforcombat.com. And finally, many thanks to you for watching today. Don't forget to come and join us over on Discord. Grady has put a ton of effort into getting it set up and running, and I especially want to thank our dear friend Michelle, also known as Grey Ghost Girl, for being willing to help us run and monitor it. I'm sure you'll be seeing more of Michelle around here at the Gallant Goblin in the future. You can always find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for previews, news, and general chit-chat. If you enjoyed the video, leaving us a like helps us out tremendously. Stay tuned for more great minis later this week. Until then, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I'll see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.